Declaration of Independence, 100% of the people who died at Gettysburg and Vicksburg, probably close to 100% of the people who died at Normandy. This has been a country built basically by white folks.
Pat joined us for this discussion from a studio in Washington, D.C. that is not far from the White House, which was, of course, built by slaves who were not white folks. The U.S. Capitol, the physical building, was built by slaves. The city of Washington, D.C., where Pat has spent his entire life, was physically built in part by slave labor. It's not even possible to imagine how America could have competed for a place in the global economy in the 1800s, say, without plantation cotton and tobacco and sugar and rice and the other industries that were so thoroughly dependent on slave labor.
This has been a country built basically by white folks.
That statement is only true if you don't consider anyone other than white folks to be folks. Even if you only consider slave labor, even if, for example, you reimagine the railroads somehow magically building themselves without Chinese laborers. The idea that only white people built America is a fantasy, and it should not have been maintained on this show as fact. As for who has died for this country in combat, more than 200,000 black Americans fought for the Union in the Civil War. Thousands even fought for the Confederacy. 1.2 million African Americans served in World War II, and yes, they were among those who stormed the beaches at Normandy. The Defense Department says almost 10,000 Mexican Americans fought for the Union during the Civil War. Hundreds of thousands of Hispanics served in the armed forces during World War II. 12 Hispanics were awarded the Medal of Honor. 24 Asian Americans received the Medal of Honor for heroism in World War II.
This has been a country built basically by white folks.
That's just not true. I love white folks. I'm white folks. Yay, white folks. It's just not factually true to generalize from white experience to explain how America came to be. Also, a clarification. Pat said over and over again in our discussion that he is against affirmative action. Rick Perlstein, who wrote the book Nixonland, turned up a memo from 1971 in which Pat actually suggested an affirmative action program to Richard Nixon's White House. It was an affirmative action program for Catholics. Quote, instead of sending the orders out to all our agencies, hire blacks and women, the order should go out, hire ethnic Catholics, preferable women, for visible posts. One example, Italian Americans, unlike blacks, have never had a Supreme Court member. Give those fellows the Jewish seat or the black seat on the court when it becomes available. In other words, choose a Supreme Court nominee in part on the basis of ethnicity and religion, said Pat to Nixon.